As the trade war starts, we speak to the ex-CIA agents for strategies of living with an itchy bottle. In Syria, the rebels auditioning for the deep state to become the U.S. next funded war by showing off their ability to waste bullets. My RFK Jr. is pushing for more roadkill at fast food restaurants.
That's beef tallow. It goes great with deer. People don't know this, but when you shatter a deer on the highway, it tenderizes the meat.
We speak to the government transgendered mice.
Those bastards took my dick. Do you know how good my life was? Doing mazes, eating cheese. But now, I'm a dickless mouse. And I don't need a hole here for other mice to try and pork. Please, give me back my dick.
For those with loved ones on Ozempic, is holding hands a side effect you need to look out for? With some who lost too much weight, joining forces and giving each other support to keep on going. We have additional Oscars coverage. As Harvey Weinstein remains in jail, we take a look at the celebrities showing up to the red carpet, looking to remind casting agents that they still have great knockers.
It's your daily dose of misinformation, pulled from a lightly hemorrhoided asshole. It's today's Run Your Mouth!
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. It is a pleasure to be joined by all of you here today as we get into the news. First, some studio news. You know, things have calmed down over here. Luckily, I had some other neighbor complain about the situation with all the noises. The noises have settled, but for some reason, the winter is now over, and I went a whole winter without any heat in this unit. And I think there must be a heat quota in the building of how much heat that they have to consume. And so now it is a fucking sauna in here. So we'll get through the episode. Don't you worry. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo and the only place in the entire world where you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. How many other things have you seen go out of control with pricing because of inflation? But YoKratom.com, they get it done. $60 kilo. Go check them out. Before we get into the news, just a couple random topics I want to talk about. One is I was up in Buffalo this past weekend. We had a great run of shows. Feeling like a lot of the new material starting to groove. And just got to take enough Adderall to get all the porch tour dates done. It will happen. It will happen. A lot of you guys, you didn't hear from me and I flaked. And that's because I was rolling. I was all Adderalled up and angried. Here's the thing with Adderall. It makes me angry. I'll get shit done that I don't otherwise want to get done, but I'm just in a bad mood. It's almost like now it sits there almost like punishment. Like, it's fun if you're out drinking, but if I actually have to get work done and I didn't want to get the work done, and so you're slamming on the gas to power through, it's not a fun experience. And so now it's almost punishment on my desk where it's like I'm going to have to take that if I don't respond to the emails. So anyways, all the people that have just been waiting to hear from me, you'll hear from me. You'll hear from me at some point. It's just I was grooving, and I don't multitask very well. And then we went on the road, and we had a string of shows, which was a lot of fun. And I got high in the morning, and I went to the art museum on Sunday, which ruled. I want to go to more art museums because, firstly, I like hanging out in wealthy, fancy people places. Like, you think going out clubbing, going out to a dive bar and any of that stuff is fun, and then you show up at a place that's all pristine and nice, and you're the one person who's all high, and it's just a bunch of old people eating brunch, and you're like, I kind of like the vibe of this. And we should bring back the segment of pastry of the year, because when I was high at the art museum, they had their little coffee shop, and you're like, great, I'll pound 19 coffees while I walk through this art museum. And then, of course, they let you buy the coffee, only they tell you can't bring it in. They don't have that sign by the coffee shop. They got a good scam going there. But, dude, there was a Danish at this place. It was a blueberry, raspberry Danish. It was talking to me. I told you guys I'm a pastry whisperer. I wish I had taken a picture of this thing, because we did one episode last year where I started a new bit called Pastry of the Year, and it went to a s'mores bar out in Stowe. and then I never did the bit again. And then while I was eating this pastry, I was like, I should have taken a picture of this, and I should be bringing back that topic of pastry of the year, because I'm out here, I'm touring the country. I like the pastries. I'm eating the pastries. I might as well report back to you guys where you can find the good pastries. I've not gone to an art museum since my grandfather was still alive. That was a fun grandfather thing, because me and him, we'd just pound coffees. We'd walk around an art museum. He knew everything about everything. He'd give you the information, and we kept it moving. And by the way, you guys would love the way I do an art museum. No one does an art museum quicker than me. I'm like, seen it, interesting, seen it. Okay, got that one. I keep it moving. You guys have any more paintings here? I saw your paintings. The only painting that really caught me was there was a Jackson Pollock, and I've talked some shit on here about how the CIA was the one just funding that splatter art, but you see a Jackson Pollock, and all of a sudden the marijuana you're on almost turns into like mushroom energy. And so I stared at that thing for a little bit. And listen, I don't know that I'll go to another art museum again for the rest of my life, but that won't keep me from complaining about what they need to fix about art museums. I've only been to one once in the last 10 years. I don't know that I'll ever go to one again. But if you think that's going to keep me from having a very loud complaint about the way they operate, you're wrong. And you got to get rid of the museum tours, and you got to figure out how to make them less echoey. Because the last thing I want to do is listen to I don't want to listen to anybody. You get people that don't know how to read that well, that will read the sounds out loud. You get an old lady whose opinion I definitely don't want to hear, and she'll just start explaining things. I don't want to hear your explanation. You can read the plaque and you can look at things. That's all you can do in the art museum. It should be treated more like the library. But the worst is the museum tour people that for some reason, they know all the information about the paintings, but they like to speak like a football coach giving a lineman instructions. Over here, that's the Monet with the brushes. It's just overwhelmingly loud and echoey. Or maybe that's just a testament to how high I was at the time. Next random topic that I wanted to get into, and don't worry, we've got like 45 slides to get through, because I meant to do an episode on Sunday, but then I also stopped at a casino and lost a lot of money playing craps. I had a fun Sunday, so we didn't get an episode done. It was a long weekend of shows, followed by kind of doubling down on a fun Sunday drive home, because it was a long ride. I had to somehow break up a 7-hour ride. So, we had some pastries. Here's a fun little restaurant. It's called the Sandwich Shop. It's not a restaurant. It's literally inside of a gas station, but it's called the Bat Factory. If you ever want to drive to the middle of upstate New York to eat a decent sandwich, not a great sandwich, but a decent sandwich that you can find out of a gas station, the Bat Factory. You can look that one up. I stopped there, and then I lost a lot of money playing craps. But listen, I want to talk about this. I've noticed Firstly, I was chugging down the Zin coffee flavors last week. Have you guys ever Zin coffee flavored? Harsh on the gums. And I don't drink coffee with sugar in it. And so I that's the problem with like addictions. It goes from, all right, I like these every once in a while. I like them when I'm on the air. And then all of a sudden they add a little extra element, a little sweetness to it. And you're going through a pack a day. And the Zin addiction, it's a weird one. Because I'm already good. I had to take a day. I had to like calm it down, because all of a sudden you turn around and you're just walking around. You're like, why can't I focus? Why can't I focus? Why can't? And then you're like, oh, right, because I went through a jar of nicotine yesterday and I haven't had one of these. Because it's not like this cigarette addiction. Like I remember when I was addicted to cigarettes and you would like taste cigarettes in your mouth. And so it was like almost more of like a physical addiction of like just tasting it in, and you're like, you want it because you can taste it. And then you're in like, you kind of like the habit of walking outside. It was more of like a habit addiction than really like a physical thing. Whereas I've noticed with the Zins, if you have like a real drinking night and you're pounding those things, like for a while, I didn't feel like I needed one the next morning, but now so I'm cooling it with the Zins. And I don't know, for people that people swear by the Zin coffees. But last week I was talking about how I was getting into Zin and tea, and that was a good week of Zin and tea, but I already am done with tea because the cooler, it doesn't matter. I don't like dealing with things. It's funny. I was really enjoying, I bought a water cooler that had instant heat. I was really enjoying having cups of hot water in the apartment. And then the cooler's gone out once. I'll probably never replace it. It'll just sit on my countertop forever. But that's not what I was trying to discuss. People were giving me a really hard time when I was all like, hey, let me tell you, a unflavored Zin with some peppermint tea is a good time. Everyone's like, you got to have the coffee Zins, you got to have the coffee Zins. And the coffee Zins are excellent, but then they taste a little bit too good. And you go through a pack a day and your gums start to hurt. And then you can't focus when you don't have them in your mouth. And you're like, I think this is a bad idea. All right, let's take some. No. Let's cover one topic, and then we'll take some comments, and we'll get into all the slides I have for you guys. But I don't even know what's going on with the tariffing. I'm just gonna say, listen, there's bad news coverage all around. I get that Donald Trump gets bad press, but it seems to me like Donald Trump has a thing going on where every single day he wants to be the top of the news cycle. He treats being in the Oval Office like it's a television show. It's not so much about what they get done. It's about that he's #1 in the rankings every single day. So you get a slow news day and he sits there and he goes, well, threaten more tariffs. Tell them we found Bigfoot. Okay, tell them anyone who went trans, we're forcing them to go back. I promise you, by May 1st, anyone that doesn't have their original parts, they're getting deported. He's got this weird, and so like there's a lot of nonsense that comes out that doesn't get made good on, and then it's hard to follow the storylines because, you know, it's almost like you got a podcast every single day and go, holy shit, he said this stupid thing, let's get into this stupid thing that he said, or you almost got to just podcast once a month and see where the dust settles and see what he actually does. In regards to, are you guys picking up that one? I mean, that's some good buzzing. Are you guys hearing the buzzing? Am I the only one hearing the buzzing right now? That sounds like they went from wood chopping the pillars to actually going for my roof. Like they're trying to carve in here and get all the extra heat that the building's pouring into my unit. Are you guys, does that get picked up by the microphone? Or am I just hearing voices in my head because I didn't have a whole package of Zyn this morning? All right, it's an interesting setup here that I can be infuriated by the sounds that I hear in the studio, and for some reason this microphone picks up absolutely none of it, and so I just have to be outraged. And you guys don't? Are you guys really not? I mean, that's even more egregious than what I was getting with the I mean, before it was just the rave music. This is like, they're trying to saw through my roof like there's a safe in here. There's no money in here. There might be a little money in here because I keep cash in here, but don't tell anyone. And hopefully no one knows the address or the guy that I share the space with. But it's not worth sawing in for. I can promise you that. All right. Ooh. I'm trying to podcast, people. Is there now we're going to have actually have a conversation. I mean, what are they doing? We'll just pretend like it's not happening. All right. Anyways, what was I trying to talk about? Oh, yeah. The tariffs aren't fun without Trudeau. That's what I was trying to say. You know, if we're bitching out Trudeau and then we're making him get on the news and be like, hey, guys, that's not nice. We should all get along. I'm gay. That's fun. That's a good time. But otherwise, just threatening all the, and I do like, all right, you know what? Let's, now I'm distracted. I don't know what point I was going for. Let's take some comments. And then we can get into the news. Ambassador Soul saying that's actually the voices of my higher self. And I like that the higher self just sends a message of just like amplified anxiety. It's like I've managed to, there's a future me that transcends this plane and then just lives in a permanently more anxious Adderall state. Wolf J. Loophole, they're just trying to connect to your Jew tunnels. That would be nice. You know, if the roof opened up and they said, I know that we're above you, but this is where the Jew tunnel is and it's time to come home, I would follow that voice. I would, if a hand came down from the unit above me and reached down and said, we will save you from your reality and bring you back to the Jew tunnels, I'll go with them. DM, listen to the voices in your head, Robbie. It's your ancestors trying to give you advice. It's not very good advice. It's just sounds. All right. And a shaking roof. John Popick, my issue with cigs was always when I saw someone else smoking, always gave me the itch. To this day, I was never like a chain smoker, but I did have a stretch where I had to like go, all right, I'm quitting on this day. And to this day, I still just like walking outsides. Like I always just still stand around with the cigarette smokers. Something nice about just breaking up being indoors and just walking outdoors. I still do it mostly after after a comedy set, I just like walking outdoors. When I worked in a sales office during the smoke breaks, I would just walk outside. I would take advantage of it. Dylan Porto was complaining, and then I forgot this was even going live. All right, thank you for that note. Jack Moore, do you have your intros uploaded to any platforms like Instagram or TikTok? The ability to share them with friends and get more eyes on the show would be cool. I would greatly appreciate that. I chop them up into individual jokes, and I put them out on Twitter and Instagram. And at some point, I have to get on TikTok. DM, saw you in St. Catharines. I was the dude in the Aloha hat. Great show. I'm glad you did a show in occupied territory. It was a fun show, and I'm hoping to porch tour in Canada this summer. So be on the lookout for more porch tour dates. All right, let's do a couple of quick news stories, and then we'll get into some of the big beefy stuff. It's the appetizers, everybody. Let's just change the layout so that you guys can see what I'm seeing. Hold on a second, everybody. Let's add this. There you go. We can go that big and me small. I'm okay with that. Here you've got Governor Tim Walz. You guys remember him. Just a couple months ago, he was running for vice president of this fine country. Governor Tim Walz, I called Canadian Premiers Doug Ford and Wab Kinney today as we try to find a way through this unnecessary and costly trade war. So here, just an opportunity to see Governor Walz sitting down for a useless photo opportunity because the guy who was not even vice president and is now governor, I don't think has a whole lot of say in whether or not Donald Trump's engaging in these tariffs, but that's not going to keep him from taking the time to make a useless phone call and show off to us that he engages in useless phone calls. Next, we've got a keyboard that's not working. You got the guy who made Hamilton. And so President Trump's takeover means it's not the Kennedy Center as we knew it, said Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator and star of Hamilton. And he turned around and said, I will take my central bank propaganda elsewhere. That was the most incredible part about everyone loving Hamilton. It's the story about us making the bank that then allowed the elites to steal our wealth and have free money forever. Here's another fun one. Women-only gym project sparks inclusion debate. And so you got these new gyms that they want to make where it's only going to be women inside of them. And with no one to go, hey, don't look at me, I'm guessing these women will just be fully clothed. Wouldn't it be funny to go to the all-women's gym and then when there's no one for them to be like, ooh, don't look at me. And then they're just back to sweatpants and sweatshirts. And then speaking of more in ladies' dress wear, titty tantrum, topless French women shriek, hail Donald Trump, hail Vladimir Putin, hail Elon Musk to protect fascist epidemic. And if you're going to take off your tits and hail someone, I don't think they're going to get the message that you're protesting. I'm just saying, if you want to condemn something, taking out the big old jugulars, it seems like more of a sign of support. And then lastly, we got Michelle Obama is starting a podcast with her brother. I got to speak out against celebrity podcasts. Firstly, other than this show and part of the problem, I feel like the whole podcasting medium feels a lot like it's been just sharp junk. And there's exceptions to that rules. Still catch some funny clips here and there from people. But like, if you're a celebrity and you've got the resources and ability to actually go out and create art or create a television show, and then you just choose to do a podcast, like, to me, it's just lazy. You can go, you have the resources. Like, if you gave me a lot of resources to make television or to make sketches, I would do more of that. This is kind of the medium for the people that, that entire thing was closed off for. So we're like, all right, well, we'll take the lesser technology and do something that's more honest and more direct. But if you got the ability and the resources to do something more extravagant and you're just choosing to do the thing of like, it's almost like eating poor people because you think it makes you look cool, which for Donald Trump, it kind of works for him. But I would respect him more if he was always sitting down having like a fat steak and a cigar. Anyways, I think these people are going to have a problem unless the algorithms this is the new version of cheating the game. In the way beforehand it used to be that, you needed massive production budgets in order to get your message out there. And so the ability to compete and get your message out there, I don't know, you'd have to write up your own newspaper and just be out in the streets handing it to people to throw into the garbage. And so that's what it took, was you had to kind of play ball with the regime so that they would platform you because you were saying the ideas that they actually liked. And so that maybe you could get on a television show, maybe get your shit published, maybe you could be in a newspaper. And now we're in this new world where they engaged in so much censorship, random people, and technology cost came down. The fact that, I don't know what this camera would have cost 20 years ago. I don't know what a microphone of this gigantic size would have cost 20 years ago. And so we've got the ability to just actually be honest. And that's the one thing that we do. And so we bring a perspective that would have been censored out of the networks. And now the signal has been distorted, where it used to be the extravagance and the money spent on well-produced television is what got consumers to think things were more reliable. And then they lied so much that all of a sudden the better signal of something actually being honest is that it's just a person sitting in front of a microphone outside of a news studio, which is why people like Gavin Newsom or now Michelle Obama, as they, I guess, maybe contend to try and make it in the next election cycle, they realize, oh, we have to figure out this podcasting medium because going on television is meaningless. So we have to figure out how to be good at this other thing. And for some reason, you actually look more believable if now you're in a low-key setting with just a microphone and nothing else, because the wealth and extravagance that used to signal that you were actually reliable is now a signal of the fact that you're just backed by a network and you're not being authentic. And so anyways, welcome to the space, celebrities that could go out and actually create something. And I think what you're doing is lazy. And even Barack Obama, I mean, Obama was cooler than Michelle Obama. And his stupid thing with Bruce Springsteen just failed. There's a bit of an art form to radio. And I think I'm pretty good at it, which is mostly because I've done a lot of this over the last 10 years and I brought comedy skills to the table. And I think for a lot of these other people who, just think that they're going to show up, and I bet there's going to be money back in this still. They're going to pretend like it's just her talking from the heart, but there'll be writers and there'll be all sorts of research staff or whatever to try and help it get it off the ground and fake the authentic thing of people actually just talking to you. All right, moving on. Let's get into some of the bigger news stories. And before we do, why not plug one of our sponsors? And Cell Shot Nutrition, my good friend Steven, he's been on the show multiple times. If you want to know how he has the power and the focus to work through all of that incredible science and news stories, it's because he's pounding the cell, what's it, the long shot. That's the one that I like. It's over on the desk over there. Great flavored, which good for your minority friends. And it's got all the stuff in there to keep you caffeinated, keep you going. All right, so I was talking about how Donald Trump seems to be walking back the tariffs until at some point he just decides that he likes the tariffs again. You never know with him, and then it's going to be tariffs on this industry. All right, too many people in that industry are upset with me. Why don't we tariff a different industry? He's figuring it out as he goes. That's the way he does market research, is just say whatever the hell it is and then see how everyone reacts and then change your mind and walk it back. And so this is from Jerome Powell. Tariff fight keeps Fed in holding powder. Powell says central bank is positioned to wait for greater clarity on outlook. And even the Fed's being like, yeah, we don't know what the fuck. We like, listen, we're in the business of pretending like we understand the banking system and that we'll sit in as a central regulator instead of having open and free markets. And even we don't actually know how to forecast for this, so we've got no choice but to we're just gonna wait and see. We don't even know if he's gonna do it. You see, the Fed is smart enough to not react and go, let's just see how this plays out. Let's read what I underlined here. The economy is fine. It doesn't need us to do anything really, Powell said during a moderated question and answer at a conference Friday in New York. And I like that because the economy's fine. It doesn't need us to do anything really. So are you guys gonna give up your paychecks? Are you guys going to not work? How much money do we have to spend for a system that doesn't actually need you guys to do anything? And by the way, most of the time when you step in to do something, is it even helpful? How good are you guys at keeping inflation at 2%? And then when you manage to, keep it there, is that just because you're pumping money in and creating other asset bubbles? President declines to rule out recession. And this is interesting, but even Donald Trump's starting to be on the news going like, all right, there might be a little bit of recession, but then we'll have the greatest thing anyone's ever seen. La, 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 la. Even he's realizing, well, firstly, I don't think he inherited a booming economy. I think that there was some fraud in those numbers. Can't prove it to you. Mostly talking out of my ass on that one. But I think that there's been problems in the markets for a long time. And I think the problem is that we might not have enough runway to get away with inflicting pain on people through tariffs. There might not be enough slack in the system to be playing these kind of games. And so even the Donald Trump team seems to be getting out. Usually it's nothing other than the best anyone's ever seen. Nobody's ever seen it. The best, the greatest. The economy is so good, you'll all be thanking me. And now he's already starting to walk it back a little bit and let us know, hey, you know, you gotta trust me on this one. You gotta stick with the tariff plan because we'll pay dividends down the road. But yeah, we might be in for a little bit of a recession here. Next up, Trump hosts crypto leaders at White House summit. And anyone got the scoop on what are we pumping and dumping? What are we dumping? What are we pumping here? Is that what it is? Is that what all the news chaos is about? Is the insiders working with Donald Trump? They know what news is coming out and they're ready. All right, tariffs tomorrow. Let's place this bet. Tariffs coming off the board. Now we can invest back in. Here's our buy opportunity. Listen, I like the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve because I bought some crap coins, including XRP, at some point in time. And listen, I missed out on government propping up the assets of stocks. I've missed out on government propping up the assets of home ownership. I own a measly little teeny tiny slice of a Bitcoin. And if they want to finally bail me out of one of my investments and buy in so that all of a sudden, that's all it is. What are we going to start complaining about government propping up the one investment that I'm in? And I'm not even in for a lot, but for all these people that had homes that they put 200,000 into of a bank's value or 300,000 in, and now it's worth 600,000, that was because the Fed just threw money into that market and made it available. And for all the people with stocks with valuations up to the wazoo, that was because of quantitative easing and loaning money to companies so that they could buy back their own stocks and keep propping up the prices. And so I'm just saying, if government wants to back an asset that I'm in, I'll complain about all the other assets, and I think it should be out of this game. But in the meantime, I'll take a bailout. I don't need to watch everyone else get a bailout. So on that one, I appreciate it. All right, and Politico, on the EU's tariff hit list, American chicken wings, motorbikes, and Wingland negligees, which I think is a word for that nicer underwear type deal, like the nightgown type things. I only know that because I Googled it. It's not, I've never asked a lady, hey, if you're coming over, bring the negligees. Doesn't even read right. It sounds like negligence, but with a harsher word mixed together. I think you guys know what word I'm saying. But this has to be good for American tourism. If just the entire rest of the world just wants to go completely queefy, and you got to come to America if you want to ride on a motorcycle, something I've never done, eat some chicken wings. I don't do that much all that else either, but I do like American whiskeys. I do like the bourbons. I do like the ryes. And so this is a good time. I mean, everyone else, your country's, not only your economy is going to suck, you're not even going to be able to sit at a bar and eat some chicken wings and have a beer while the world goes to shit. America is going to be the last party for the end of the world where everyone else removes all of the awesome American stuff that we send to them, which apparently is things like motorcycles and chicken wings. And then we'll be the last place where you can have a good party for the end of the world. All right. I think we got more substantial topics coming. Here's a fun one. All right. This is a fun one. Guys, we've lived with a lot of transgender nonsense over the last couple of years. The Democrats pushing it upon us. A lot of talk about inclusion. A lot of talk about how if you were born into a gender, you're not actually that gender. A lot of talk about how we need government-sponsored gender-affirming care and that maybe your kids should even be taken away from you if you don't want to affirm their gender. I mean, there's been a lot of crazy conversations. And there's different elements there. I guess there's the first element is it even true that you can be a gender that's different than the one that you were born at? And let's just even say that that's not true. If you seem to identify as the gender other than the one that you're born at, is it actually helpful in any way to go through treatment that is going to make physical augmentations to your body? And does the technology actually support, for example, replacing your penis with a vagina? Like, does the technology support that you're not just going to live in pain because they can't actually perform that operation? And I put this out to you guys, the Stevens of the world, the people that are better at the scientific data and the information. There's a lot of things that I read through to a T, and I report back, hey, I've thought through all of this, and here's my best approach on it. I didn't read the actual academic journal, so I'm giving you this summary of things that I saw from this and what my takeaway was. But Steven, our Wonder Boy non-scientist, if you want to pound a bunch of long shots, read through this and tell me if I had it right. or if someone wants to contend that I have it wrong, robsnewsroom@gmail.com. But there was a lot of loud and prolific talk about that. Not only did we just assume it as a given that you could have this terrible problem where God is so evil, the universe is so evil, that you are a male and you were born into a female body, or you were a female and you were born into a male body. Now, as to what indicates that you're more male or female than just looking down and seeing, oh, I have a dick here, I'm a dude, I got a vagina here, I'm a lady, that's what's here, maybe I should figure out how to live with that. It's a little bit confusing, but let's just go with it. So you look down and you've got the wrong parts and equipment for what you think you're supposed to be. And so now we got a secondary question of, is it better to contend with the reality and go, hey, I know that I identify as something other than what's right here, but maybe I can make this work for me? Or should you go through the process of trying to live out as the other gender that you think you're supposed to be, and whatever that means? And we've had a lot of really loud talk about how gender affirmation is helpful to people. It will keep them from committing suicide. If you have a kid, you better bring them to a medical care facility and pause their puberty, because if you don't, you're literally killing your child. And there was a lot of talk, and you might even wonder, what research do you guys have to back up this talk? You guys are being very aggressive. You're very sure that this is helpful, and this is quite a drastic change, particularly with kids, that I don't think a kid can know this about themselves, but very aggressive. They went very aggressive with it, and you would think, okay, you must have really great research to be able to back this up. And not only did they seemingly not have great research to back this up, and it was interesting because even in court cases, it was just sat there as a given. It just sat there as a given that the medical community, it was a little bit like the COVID stuff. Like even in the Supreme Court, it'd be like the medical community sees this as a beneficial, and so you're declining you're declining healthcare. And so here you have an Oxford study. I'm just going to assume that they went into this study hoping to show you the value of transing people. And so here we go. Examining gender-specific mental health risks after gender-affirming surgery, a national database study. So I'm just reading, we're going to read the short summary. But first, this was tweeted out by Colin Wright. I believe that this was included in the Zero Hedge article that I read. And like I said, audience, I have no way of actually sitting down, running through this math. I'm telling you the way the information is being presented. And who's presenting the information? You're welcome to fact check me or explain that I had this wrong. But seemingly, after this Oxford study, and maybe someone even wants to debunk this study and tell us why it was a bad study, people that went through gender-affirming surgery ended up with higher thoughts of suicide, higher rates of depression, higher rates of substance abuse disorder, and higher rates of anxiety. And so seemingly, at least this study would seem to showcase that going through gender-affirming care does not actually help people in terms of keeping them from, thinking about suicide or all the things. Hey, you're going to be saving a life if you go through this. But now, here's the part that I kind of thought was funny. But let's actually read through this. This was the actual Oxford write-up of what the study was. So let's start with the abstract background. Transgender individuals face heightened psychological distress, including depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, partly due to stigma and lack of gender affirmation. So they believe that the reason why these people are miserable is because of stigma of gender affirmation. Let's continue. Aim to evaluate mental health outcomes in transgender individuals with gender dysphoria who have undergone gender-affirming surgery, stratified by gender and time since surgery. Methods. I think I'm going to skip that part. I'm going to skip that part. If you're into math and letters and numbers and dashes, you guys can read that one. This is the part that I thought, we're coming up on the part that I thought was particularly funny. Outcomes. Primary outcomes were differences in mental health disorders, specifically depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, body dysmorphic disorder, and substance use disorder among transgender individuals post-surgery. That was the part that I didn't want to read. Clinical implications. Findings suggest the necessity for gender-sensitive mental health support following gender-affirming surgery to address post-surgical psychological risks. Apparently, there's risks after you get the surgery. Strengths and limitations. By leveraging ICD-10 codes, we provide a more accurate representation of patient demographics and clinical outcomes, minimizing recall and reporting biases that often limit surgery based on research limitations, include the inability to account for unmeasured co-founders such as social support. Here's the fun part. You ready? Here's the fun part. Read a bunch of nonsense. Here's the fun part. Conclusion. Gender-affirming surgery, while beneficial in affirming gender identity, is associated with increased risks of mental health issues. Did you guys catch how incredibly circular that is? The whole argument used to be that this is beneficial to people. Now, it's actually not psychologically beneficial to people, but in this religion of that you are giving to the cause of becoming a gender that you weren't born at, so it's actually good. You're able to affirm your gender, whatever that means, because you're actually not affirming your gender. If you're born as a male and then you're removing your penis to go, hey, I'm actually a female, I would say that that's actually non-affirmation of gender. So you need a better terminology here. It's gender affirmation of preferred non-gender. Your preferred actual non-born gender, you can affirm your psychological disorder and then have misery because this isn't actually good science. But the fact that in the conclusion, so it starts off the study, I think, let's go back. What was the study about? I think it was examining gender-specific mental health risks after gender-affirming surgery, a national database study. And the conclusion is that the studies can help you affirm your non-gender, but they're not actually beneficial for the psychological outcomes. Gender-affirming surgery, while beneficial in affirming gender identity, is associated with increased risks of mental health issues, underscoring the need for ongoing gender-sensitive mental health support for transgender individuals post-surgery. So what we actually need is put more resources into smoothing out the gender-affirming process, because now it's just a given that people should be able to affirm their wrong gender. I think that's the more accurate way of saying it. And so now what we actually need is to put more resources into figuring out how we can make that not so depressing for the people that made the mistake and did it. All right. Next topic. I've spoken about this on a couple podcasts. I haven't actually played it. Elon Musk, he was saying that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. How many people in the chat under the age of, like, let's say 45 actually think you're going to be picking up a Social Security check? And if you do pick up a Social Security check, do you think it's going to actually cover rent and groceries? I don't even know if current Social Security check covered rent and groceries, but I guess what I'm asking you is, when you're saving for retirement, if you're smart enough to save for retirement, is there any part of you that's calculating in, hey, I think I'm going to have this amount of money coming in with a Social Security check? I mean, I'm not that. I just try and save something at all points in time, and I'm actually not that good about making sure that I'm saving for retirement. But with all that said, there's no part of me that thinks, hey, the government's got that covered, I don't need to save money. If anything, I'm like, let's work really hard and hopefully have some very good income years. Maybe at age 50, the whole world will change. They'll slap me in prime time of Fox News, and maybe 50 to 60 will make a whole bunch of money and then move to an island and drink for 10 years and then not have needed the retirement money anyways. I don't know how you guys envision your life. I'm not really an island person. I'm more of like a ski mountain and river type person. But who knows? Maybe I'm all old and saggy and wrinkled and nothing but rolls of skin and my knees hurt. Maybe I'll get into the beach thing and just sitting there and staring at the ocean and wondering when the alcohol will finally turn me septic. Is that the word I'm looking for? Anyways, what do you guys fantasize for your older years? Is it sitting around and watching the grandkids run around? Or is it making enough money that you can retire and just drink till your liver fails? I don't know. Everyone, it's personal preferences. We got people out here that are hocking off their own dicks and now rallying the government for more emotional support so that they can further figure, once they realize that the physical operation didn't actually do the non-thing of affirming the gender that they are, and now they're trying to get more resources that some psychologists can help them further brainwash themselves into thinking it was a good idea. Anyways, but we already covered that topic. That's not the topic we're trying to cover. What we're trying to cover right now is what I'm saying is that if you think you're going to be picking up some Social Security check, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot for you. If the checks continue to exist, let's say in 40 years from now, when you start needing it for retirement, my guess is through inflation or other means, it's not going to be much of a check. And so here you have Bernie Sanders and he's trying to debunk the claim that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. And if you listen to his explanation of Social Security, it sounds to me like he's actually defining a Ponzi scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme. You just need more money to come in to pay for the new people. As long as we have new people and new money coming in to pay out the old people, then we need what he actually says is that we need it, but he doesn't want to contend with reality that, yes, it is a Ponzi scheme. And then he goes on to just define what a Ponzi scheme and explaining how Social Security isn't that. Let's give it a listen.
Well, let me ask you about Social Security. And you raised Elon Musk, Senator, so let me follow up with you on this very point, because he's made some very pointed comments about Social Security. I referenced it earlier in the broadcast. This was to Joe Rogan. I'd like you to hear it and get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. Basically, people are living way longer than expected. And there are fewer babies being born. So you have more people who are retired and that live for a long time and get retirement payments. So the future obligations. So however bad the financial situation is right now for the federal government, it will be much worse in the future.
Senator, President Trump says he's not going to touch Social Security. Elon Musk calls it a Ponzi scheme. Do you agree?
No, I think what Musk, the wealthiest guy in the world, just said is totally outrageous. That's a hell of a Ponzi scheme when for the last 80 years, Social Security has paid out every nickel owed to every eligible American.
So did Madoff before they broke it up. I mean, that's a good one. I mean, every Ponzi scheme until someone realizes it's a Ponzi scheme and too many people try and pull their money out. But so his first explanation is it can't be a Ponzi scheme because thus far we've paid everybody out. Let's continue.
Quite a Ponzi scheme. What is in fact a problem is that if we don't make reforms and improve the funding mechanism, in the next 9 years, the Social Security Trust Fund, which provides about 20% of the funding, will go broke.
There you go. So all the money thus far that's come in, we've paid out. And as long as we can find new money to come in, we can continue to pay people out. That's a Ponzi scheme.
So what we have got to do, and I think most Americans agree, and I've just introduced legislation to do that, is you lift the cap on taxable income. Right now, Musk, worth $400 billion, contributes the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund as somebody making $170 million.
Once again, describing if we can just sucker new investors to come in so that we can pay out the old investors.
You lift that cap, we can extend the solvency of Social Security for 75 years, and you can raise benefits. Kristen, right now in America, half of elderly people are trying to get by on $30,000 a year, 20.
All right, and now I want to get into some of the Doge cuts and the panic by organizations that seemingly rely on government funds. And remember, if the government funds don't continue, we're all going to die. You're going to hear a lot of that. Look at all these people that could have lived, but because the government funds no longer exist, they're going to die. And so here we go. This is a video from the AP, and it's talking about, you know, how if it's not for government funding, we'll all die. Let's roll it, and then I can break it down.
NIH is the engine that has produced all these therapies, all the fantastic therapies you hear about for cancer, heart disease, and for brain health. But it's scary about what are we going to do if that doesn't happen, if we don't get funded. So I get a certain grant from NIH, and then it's supplemented to the university to support the infrastructure around my laboratories. The simple things to think about are heat and light and cleaning up of the lab. We identified this one gene called SYNGAP1, and this turns out to be a really important gene for learning. There are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of these kids who have mutations in SYNGAP. So the parents know there's a window of time, right? We think we could probably treat, starting if it's between 2 and 8.
I want to pause it here, and there's two things that infuriate me about this. First is the media. How many stories do they run of people that lost their businesses over COVID? How many stories they run about learning loss or people who didn't visit a relative and then they got old and died and then they didn't see them in the last 2 years of their life. So there's just something about the individual pieces of horror stories because of government decisions that, you know, they've got the budget and the resources, maybe not forever, as, you know, we'll see what ends up happening with USAID as apparently the newest round of government funding just includes re-upping everything that Doge cut. But let's not have too much ADD here. Let's not have too much distraction, because there's 2 points that I want to make in regards to government needs to fund these organizations. They need to fund these agencies. You're going to hear a lot of, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And for one, it's the resources of these institutions that they're able to pick the stories and showcase on little horrible things. And now in this case, I'm going to call bullshit, because if you're telling me that you have life-saving research, you're telling me that there's no way to profit off of that. You're telling me that you have a product that can actually help, and not just help, but save people's lives, and there's nobody that wants to fund that research. There's no market mechanism. There's no drug company. There's no pharmaceutical company. There's no way to go directly to all these parents and say, hey, that's an interesting way to start funding these things, is to make your pitch of going, I know that your kids have a rare disease and I might be able to cure it. And if I can cure it, I need blank amount of research and maybe getting the things. So you're telling me that without a government paycheck, which doesn't necessarily actually need results, there's absolutely no way to develop things that could save people's lives? That just doesn't sound like a reasonable story to me. You're telling me there's absolutely no profits in saving people's lives, that the only mechanism to possibly engage in life-saving research is with a government grant? I don't buy that story. And furthermore on this topic, this was reported by Fox News, and this is something that I will have to delve into more. I don't think I'm going to do any more end-of-year presentations, but sometimes there are topics that I think are so interesting. I kind of write down that I'd like to investigate them and see if maybe I can further develop it into one of those style things. New study reveals staggering scope of how much DEI was infused into government under Biden. The study shows that over $1 trillion has been spent promoting DEI. And that's a pretty fascinating thing to think about, because I've talked about it before, that status and clout, we all want to work honest jobs, we want to make a decent living, and we want to be able to provide for our families, and feel like you got a decent social standing. Now, we're not all serial killers that want to be the Elon Musk, the Donald Trumps, the on the top, and the extremely wealthy. Some of us are lazy, and we're just looking for a pathway to live a decent life. And then you start realizing how much money is just the Fed supporting its own horse shit. And so if you're an honest actor and you don't want to just get on a television channel and preach the next war, or whatever industry you're working in, if you're not just in line with the regime and whatever they're looking to sell, then your pathway to success is more minimalized. It might even just be like you're kind of a dude and you're wondering, why does every workplace seem to be overly promoting women, and that I can't behave in a way that I'm comfortable? And why are schools not really oriented for the kind of things I'd like to study or be good at? And you got to just start wondering how much of it was the Fed money that's been in the system promoting basically its own ideas. And so if you were a professor and you wanted to engage in research that was beneficial to the regime, you were getting paychecks. If you were on media beneficial to the regime, you're getting a paycheck. And so it's interesting to think how much government money has been in the system, basically just full-scale socialism of, instead of creating value in the market, just basically preaching to us the government's agenda. And so on that note, here's Elon Musk talking about the problems of NGOs, and that Congress doesn't even actually have a paper record of necessarily what it's funding. It's kind of very similar to the whole EPA thing of that Congress is supposed to write the laws or whatever. And so instead, this happened in the Supreme Court the other year. They're just in funding these agencies that they don't have to actually do the work. Well, it seems like even in terms of what we're going to fund and what government should actually spend money on, instead of Congress writing the checks to the people to go get the socialized things that they think are important, you just fund the NGOs. And then, you start thinking about how little accountability there was in failed green energy projects, of failed windmill projects, failed whatever out in the ocean, failed solared, failed high electricity energy lines or the rail lines out in California. You think about just the absolute failures of all these programs, and that's when government's allocating the money directly to a favorable company. But what happens when it's just giving money over in the billions of dollars to an NGO? And then you just think about how much money is being spent on nonsense that could even include helping people sneak over the border or other things that work against our interest. Here we go. Let's roll the clip.
What we saw there is just a tremendous amount of money being sent to non-governmental organizations. But actually, this, by the way, is, I think, one of the biggest sources of fraud in the world, is government-funded non-governmental organizations. This is a gigantic fraud loophole where the government can give money to an NGO, and then there are no controls over that NGO. So they've given billions of dollars, in fact, we estimate tens of billions of dollars to NGOs that are essentially scams.
By the way,
I'm trying to put a stop to that. You know, so
I don't want to interrupt, but Secretary of State Rubio just come out. I think he tweeted today. He has accepted over 80% of your recommendations to shut down in USAID.
Right.
So your review and analysis was spot on.
Yes. So I think when people criticize, say, what DOGE is doing, we say, well, which part specifically? Because we put all of the actions of the DOGE team on the doge.gov website and on the DOGE handle on X. So we post the receipts. So it's like this action has been taken, this action has been taken.
It's wild to me how little journalism I've seen about government funding of NGOs, the mechanisms of how much money is being spent, who it's going to, how much fraud might exist in that system, or what the money's actually being spent on. There was a story that on the way out, Joe Biden put $20 billion into, I think it was a Merrill Lynch or something. It was one of the banks. I forget which bank it was. But he put $20 billion into a bank account that was then supposed to fund further green energy projects on his way out. How much money of that do you think just made it back to him? Or there was that other lady who then got $2 billion to run an NGO. I hope, like, in terms of like journalism topics, that you like, if we had honest news networks, they would be all over all the time. The fact that there's just government money being handed to NGOs. Who are the NGOs? What's the mechanism for being funded? What's the relationship between those people and, let's say, our intelligence agencies or just family members of people in the government? How much of that money's just been squandered and ended up like in the of people that are being paid way outside of the range of what other people in that field make? Or how many items are purchased for ranges that are significantly above, like, you know, what you would be able to just purchase those from a different company if there was competition? How many of these NGOs actually accomplish their missions? And how many of these funded NGOs are even things that if we were to just put up for a vote, people would think was important? I mean, maybe we'll find out down the line how much money was spent, literally NGOs down in South America, to try and bring people over the border against the Americans' will. I just skipped a whole lot of slides. And then while we're on, why is it doing that to me? I think this was what was next. This is from Fortune magazine. Fired NIH workers for fear bleak job prospects in the private sector because their research is too specific to be retrofitted. No VC is going to fund that. And if your research, if you're a brilliant scientist and you're a brilliant researcher and you're doing research that is highly beneficial to people, why is it that there's no profit possible for that research? Why is it that a VC wouldn't want to put a bunch of money, give you a lab, and be like, yeah, let's work on that? Unless what you're actually working on is bioweapons, illegal gain-of-function research, or things that actually have no value to society whatsoever. Why is it that you can be a high-skilled scientist researcher with absolutely zero ability to get hired in the private market? Is your skill set that valueless to the private market? And then if there's nothing that it can possibly do that creates enough value that people would want to pay for it, that someone might want to actually fund it, then why does government need to fund it? You're not going to hear that side of the story. Can someone explain to me what are these high-skilled jobs that only the government funds, that there's no reason for in the free market? All right. I think I have one more topic. Oh, this was reported in Zero Hedge that essentially at USAID, they're running out of burn bags. They're telling people shred as much as you can and don't overpack the burn bags, and then just mark things as secret. You would think if you're shutting down an agency for fraud, you would storm the doors and keep all their papers and maybe try and get the story out there. But I guess USAID is being given the opportunity to move offices and clean up their records as much as possible. And then this was another article on the same topic. John Hopkins plans staff layoff after 800 million grant cuts. Just speaking once again, I feel bad if you're one of these people. I was not academic. I was never going to make money in academia. But, you know, there's a whole world of doctors and academics and people that were all like, wow, you're a professor of this and you make blank amount of money. We're all like, yeah, you're all so impressive. And then, you know, you wash a little socialism out of the system. And how many of these people were receiving money just to go back and go, oh, everyone needs to get their COVID vaccines. Transgender is great. Let's open up a hospital that does even more of that. All right. Waiting on Robert, who's going to come on. We're going to close out the episode with a nice sheath segment. I've tired myself out yelling here a little bit. My arm's starting to hurt, and my giant microphone doesn't even fit into that slot. Slot's going to have to do some reverse Kegels or something so we can fit my my giant microphone in it. This one caught my eye. America turns to Kiev to build better drones. And it's on the same topic of just how much socialism is in this American economic system that we don't even realize. And this one caught my eye. America turns to Kiev to build better drones. I want to read this one paragraph. American startups are slower to build, deliver, and update their drones. Many U.S. companies that brought their drones to Ukraine watch them fall out of the sky or fail to complete missions. And do you remember for how much of our lives we used to hear about American innovation? We're the best at innovation. We used to hear that all. We're going to stay competitive because nobody has American innovation. And yet, what happened over the last 10, 20 years that even in a situation like going to war, the people that have the military contracts to create the new technology that we might need if we're fighting in war is building technology that doesn't work and will just fall from the sky. Doesn't that sound like it's a product of a socialist environment, of just bad government central planning, that they can't actually get good goods and services to the market? And here, with military experience and what looks like an unbelievably cool car, what are you driving in there? Is that a Tesla?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I love Elon Musk, baby.
There you go. You know, for all the talk about how everyone's, all the liberals are losing interest, you got Donald Trump doing photo opportunities from the front lawn. I don't know how I feel about that.
I know that was a little bit, that is weird. I mean, because now he's promoting a particular car company, right?
Now, listen, I've seen it in the past where presidents will show up to like a General Motors to tour the new facility, and there is something to be said for, I guess, championing not just, I was talking about American innovation, but American factories and services. So it's not completely unfounded. Like, for example, if Donald Trump was showing up to sheathunderwear.com and he said, I want to show you the greatest pouches, the best. My balls never felt better. You know what I mean? If he was in that factory, it feels so smooth. I'd go, that's great. He's pitching Sheath. But when you've got Sheath working in the government on the other, then I start going, it kind of feels like you're cutting a commercial. This is a little dicey.
A little dicey. I think he did it because people are like burning Teslas or something. Like terrorism.
I think there was some crazy claim that he's even going to start prosecuting people for. There's a little too much bravado talk. It's going to be the next topic after we get into it a little bit. But with the kicking the green card people out if they were protesting Israel.
Oh my goodness, relax. Yeah, he's doing so much though. I admire his energy. It's like, wow, dude, I wish I had that level of energy. And you know, the Zelensky thing, I was like, I agreed with him when Zelensky was like, no, you're going to feel it. And he was like, don't tell us what we're going to feel. And I because I would have said something like that if somebody said like some kind of weird threat. But then it went on for like 5 minutes, and I was just like, okay, but I guess it's working out. So maybe he knows what he's doing. I hope we get these $5,000 checks. I'll tell you that. That's what I
Wait,
hope.
we're getting five. Oh, the Doge saving checks.
Yeah. Have you heard?
I don't think you're gonna see that. I don't think that one's happening. Especially the storyline. I gotta reread this one. But Thomas Massey, he opposed the, I don't even know, the CFR, whatever they call it, the continuing funding, which would have continued funding all the way out until September. All right. Now, here's the wild part about it. Firstly, is, you know, it's an opportunity to actually talk. You got, I think, Republicans have control of Senate, Congress, and obviously the White House. So now is a pretty good opportunity with all the shenanigans that's going on in the world to go, hey, we got to cut some spending.
Yes, I agree
Now,
with that.
not only does it just make sense to start having a conversation being more aggressive about cutting spending at a minimum, an absolute minimum. You've got Elon Musk telling us about all this fraud and abuse. Why are you refunding the fraud and abuse? Apparently, included in this is the Biden level of spending for agencies such as USAID.
Oh,
So I would think at a minimum, even if you're not going to engage in any real dialogue about reducing government spending and you're going to be reckless, I would think you would at least take this as an opportunity to go, well, we're not going to fraud the fraud and abuse. And then I was even listening to, what's his name? The guy who used to be Dan Bongino.
Yeah.
And he was saying, who has a better plan? It's just going to get filibustered in the Senate anyways. Then great. Out the Democrats who specifically want to put up a fight for funding fraud and abuse. You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's a good, you're a chess guy. You play chess. That's a good chess play of just say, we're just not funding the fraud and the abuse and bring the receipts on what is complete fraud and abuse. And then force the Democrats to go, we are shutting down the government unless you fund these specific things. Don't even have a fight over the other stuff. Like, there's an argument to be had about forced government wealth redistribution and ignoring the fact that we don't actually have the funding for the entitlement programs that people don't want to lend us money. Shelve that entire argument and just go, we the Republicans will not fund the fraud and abuse that was found out by Elon Musk. Here's the receipts on what's fraudulent. Now, let's say you can only prove that $50 million was fraudulent. That's all you have the receipts for. Then just oppose that and force the Democrats to make a stand on that they'll shut down the government unless fraud and abuse is funded. Drop the mic, Robert.
I can't agree with you more. Like, this is the time to point out who's doing this, you know, and then make them stand up for it and litigate their case. But the people don't want it. I like cutting out all this extra spending overseas. Give it back to the people, and I'm gonna just tell you why I think the 5,000 would be good. Not because I need it. You know how we do it, baby boy. But it will come to us. You know, like if everyone has a little bit of extra money in their pocket, we're gonna see a piece of that, and then most of it's gonna go back to the government. They're gonna get 30% of it back, and it stimulates the economy. I get a little piece of it, and everybody gets a little bit of relief, and then the government gets most of it back anyways. That's my reason for potentially for the 5,000. But
so the reason, what they were saying with the 5,000, and I thought it was a brilliant marketing strategy of the fraud and abuse that we cut out of the government, we will send back to you guys a percentage as a dividend. But if Congress and the Senate are just refunding funding all these agencies, we're not going to see a check. All right. I have Robert. I'm starting to train, and I've got my eye on you that I am going to beat you up the Manitou incline. And what I've discovered is I had a leg injury last year. I can't quite jog, but for whatever reason, I seem to be able to hit the stairs.
yeah,
So I ran some stairs last week, and I was on the Stairmaster, which is tough. Even just walking on that Stairmaster, that will get you going.
yeah.
And I have to think about how exactly we're going to do it, but I'd like to maybe put out a challenge to the fans of maybe the most steps on a stair walked in the month. Where's the Sheath prize package? And then I can try and compete to stay on the leaderboards against the fans. And now we're specifically doing stairs because I have to train to beat you, and I think it could be a motivating environment for all of us.
I would love to be a part of that. Sheath can definitely supply an ample amount of underwear to the winner, and they got to show like a picture of the dashboard where they completed.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the only way to do it is specifically because here's the thing. I don't like. I much prefer if I can find outdoor stairs to run because then I
Okay.
can actually
Yes.
run it. If you're on the Stairmaster, you're kind of stuck at the. It gets a little scary. You're gonna fall over like an old lady in front of everyone in the gym. So you kind of have to walk it, but it gets tough.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
all right. Maybe let's keep it simple for this month. Starting, maybe we'll just do it this month only. At the end of the month, and you've got to take a video of your last minute on the stair thing, and whoever completed the most stairs at the end of the month, we got a sheath prize package for them, and we'll see if I can beat whoever from the fans. Which this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be an easy one to beat. Because I will just basically, when I go to the gym now twice a week, I'll do about 20 minutes. I'm not doing more than 40 minutes a week on the Stairmaster. That's crazy. It's boring.
You gotta multitask. We bought this new treadmill, and I do have to run, but it has like a little spot for the laptop, so I can at least do my emails. But we will supply $250 worth of sheath credit to the winner, if that sounds like enough. And I just want to tell everyone listening, you guys are amazing. You're unstoppable. You're the best. You can do anything you put your mind to, visualize it, achieve it. It works. Just focus on the thing you want to achieve, and like you're gonna do it because you can.
I just want to beat you up the Manitou Incline. So that's
Well,
my
focus on
vision
it.
board. There you
Uh,
go. All right, throwing it out there for the fans this month. We'll come up with a new challenge next month. 1 month to go. Take pictures of our last 30 seconds around the Stairmaster. Whoever put up the most stairs for the month of March. And Robert had a business meeting later.
Thanks, guys. Love you guys. Sheathunderwear.com.
Catch you later, Mr. Robert. All right. And now I had one more topic that I wanted to cover. Actually, no. This is a long episode. Buckle up, everybody. Here we can take a couple comments. I haven't taken comments. Should I shave my Apple bag before switching to sheath? Serious question. I don't shave. You know what I like to do? And I don't do it that often, but I like the little scissors and getting in there like it's a bonsai tree. It's a nice evening. And I'm not actually shaving the nutsack, but you like to trim it down. And if you've got a big old hairy bush of things going all over the place, if anything, Sheath will keep it all in place. And if you use promo code RYM, you can get yourself 25% off. I think maybe it's 20% off. I don't remember, but it's something. Sarah Stern, I'm amazed at a quality mic. I was in a Zoom meeting when my building's fire alarm went off right beside me. / my mic and the folks I was on the call with did not hear. Amazing. Dude, the fire alarm went off in my building yesterday. Some idiot decided to put his cutting board in the oven or something. And it's funny when you wake up and you're like, ah, shit, that's the building's fire alarm. And then you got to debate with yourself just how much you're going to panic and run right out the door. Am I going to take a piss first? Should I grab the laptop? Do I want to put my pants on? There should almost be like 2 different fire alarms. One for like the casual, you can drift out, and the other one like you got 30 seconds or you're gonna die. I peed and then I found pants, and then I wandered a little bit and then realized this was no time for ADD and left with the other residents of the building, and then found out it was the neighbor who's like, "Yeah, I'm an idiot." Ambassador Soul braided apple bag. That was his tribe name. If you have long enough pubic hair coming off of you know what you should really do is if you can somehow just grow like on the top to get like like a handlebar mustache underneath the dick over the ball bag, that's the way to go. I don't know how much time it's going to take you, and I don't know if you have thick enough, long enough pubes to pull off a handlebar mustache underneath your dick with everything else cleanly shaven. And then you should get 2 googly eyes and put it above your penis. So especially if you have a small penis, then it just looks like a nice nose. I think that's what you should do. Listen, I'm not here to tell you how you should live your life, but if you have long enough, but you know what? I'll change the sheath challenge. If someone out there has long enough pubic hairs that they can get a handlebar mustache going under their putty penis so that their penis looks like a nose, and then they want to glue 2 googly eyes on top of it so that the whole thing looks like a face with an awkward chin, you win. And I'll explain to Robert that sure, there was some other guy who got his lard ass in shape and did a bunch of steps on a Stairmaster, but the real hero here is the guy with the handlebar ball sack. All right, let's close out all the news. I want to clean the deck. I want no news left over. A lot of times there's leftovers. Website's not built yet. We don't have the leftover show going, so let's get through all of it. And by the way, this Friday I'll be back with an episode with Professor David Collum. Looking forward to that. You guys can listen to last year's episode, and you can go over to his website and you can read his annual yearly recaps. A lot of specific questions I'm curious to get his insight on, and he's got hot takes on everything and seemingly well-researched. All right, here we go. And also, email me your porches, robsnewsroom@gmail.com. And if you don't currently follow me, Twitter, Robbie the Fire. Get a lot of people emailing me. They're telling me I can't find the dates. They want to come out. They want to ski. I'm going to tweet that link. I'll also tweet the link for out in Idaho. Those are my 2 April dates at the moment. More dates coming shortly. And I got a bunch of people to respond to who hit me up about skiing out in wherever it is. Steamboat. Could a bombshell discovery render all of Biden's presidential actions null and void? And talk about investigations that probably will never happen, but I'd love to see. I mean, unwinding the NGOs, that's a good one. This is a good one also. Of if Biden did not actually sit down and sign these documents, and seemingly he had dementia towards the end. I mean, what's the protocol here for a president that's got an automatic signing machine, and then whoever is actually calling the shots gets to just feed the signing machine papers for the signing machine to sign? Is that the way that this democracy is supposed to function? I mean, I think you'd have quite a bit that you need to do to actually unwind this. I think you'd have to actually prove that at the time he did have full dementia or wasn't aware of things that were being signed. And then I think you'd also have to prove that other presidents don't sometimes let staffers just sign. I think even if you're auto signing things, you're at least running it by the president of, hey, we're going to run the auto pen on this guy. But, you know, it's a fun one. It's a fun one. Sure, investigate Joe Biden, haul him in, and find out what he wasn't aware of that got signed, and then revoke Hunter Biden's and Fauci's pardon, and actually prosecute Fauci. Last plug of the show. You can get these at robbernsteinmerch.com. All right, now I want to get into this Marco Rubio going after people with green cards, banging American citizens, and saying, hey, you came to our country, you're standing against the American interest, you're supporting Hamas, you got to get the hell out of here. And I feel like there's a lot of just missing information from this conversation. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's just kind of picking up when people are lying. And usually they lie by just distorting little details or not including things that would actually present a logical flow for their argument. They just skip over it. They very confidently sell you on something that's a little bit different than what, like, almost the common sense truth of the situation would be. And so in this case, if a person engaged in criminal or illegal activity, what exactly was the criminal activity that this guy partook in? Was that he organized the, like, what specifically did he do that was illegal? And are people with green cards not allotted free speech protections? And so let's just give, and by the way, also, here's another part that's just missing, a missing detail. Was he supporting the people of Gaza, or was he specifically promoting Hamas? Because that's different. You could say that it's against the strategic interest of the United States of America and that Israel's our closest ally, and so that anyone that condemns any activity that Israel does is actually working against the United States' interest. Or you can go as so far as to saying that criticizing Israel is actually anti-Semitism, which they're seemingly trying to create that label. Or you could say that supporting that people in Gaza shouldn't be killed is actually promoting Hamas. So you got a bunch of questions here. Did this guy specifically engage in a legal activity? And when you say that he was supporting a terrorist organization, were the claims and actions of what he was doing actually supporting the terrorist organization of Hamas? Or is he standing up for the people of, the Palestinians or the people of Gaza? These are all very different things. All right, this was tweeted out from Homeland Security on March 9, 2025, in support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism, which once again, that should just be illegal. Like, are you taking actions against people? There should be no law against anti-Semitism. It should be the typical laws against violence. Otherwise, what exactly is the crime that you've done? And then you're opening up the door for censorship, and that you can label, for example, being anti-Israel as being anti-Semitic, and now all of a sudden you've engaged in a crime, which could just be seemingly speech. All right, let's continue. Prohibiting anti-Semitism, which that seems loose. How do you define what exactly is anti-Semitism? It's the same thing to me as like hate crimes also. It's like the crime is the problem. Otherwise, you're now policing for thought. And in coordination with the Department of State, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Mohammed Khalil, a former Columbia University graduate student. Khalil led activities aligned to Hamas. Now, what does that mean, aligned to Hamas? So if both myself and Hamas share a value of let's not kill the innocent civilians of Gaza, which, by the way, I don't even think Hamas has that value, or at least the Israelis claim that they're more than happy to use those people as cannon fodder to make Israel look bad on the world stage. So if you go with the Israel propaganda, I'm not even aligned with Hamas if I'm interested in the innocent civilians of Gaza. But what does that mean? Khalil-led activities aligned to Hamas. So does that mean he's specifically doing a protest for we all have to support Hamas? Does that mean he wants... I'm just saying that's ill-defined. That's pretty loose. So aligned to Hamas. So if I think that the civilians here shouldn't be killed, am I aligned to Hamas? A designated terrorist organization. In this case, I think it's fair to call Hamas a terrorist organization, but you do have a similar problem of, for example, when the FBI was trying to claim that there's domestic terrorists in this country, you do once again have a labeling problem of that. If you can throw the terrorist label, it should just be the actions of individuals. In this case, I think Hamas has done enough reprehensible things but it should still just be criminal organizations. I think the actual affiliation in the word terrorist allows governments to further, take away people's, let's go with civil liberties. That seems like it should fit at the end of that sentence, but maybe it doesn't. All right. And then I wanted to read this. This was from, I believe this was from the New York Times. The administration did not publicly lay out the legal authority for the arrest, but two people with knowledge of the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive internal deliberations said Secretary of State Marco Rubio relied on a provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act and gives him sweeping power to expel foreigners. The provision says any alien whose presence or activities in the United States the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States is deportable. Another just red flag is when you have obscure laws that aren't usually used, and then they're used in certain specific cases. It's kind of like all the different rules around the books that they tried to get Donald Trump on. That's usually showcasing at least a not fair usage of the laws when you got some law that's being used in some specific case. In terms of what this is describing, though, it says any alien whose presence or activities in the United States. So firstly, I guess there's sweeping powers of the government to remove foreign aliens who are against the regime. Now, the problem is, what can you be doing? Like during the COVID times, you could have been talking out against COVID, and then you're acting against the regime. Or let's say you immigrated to the country before the Vietnam War and you're from Vietnam, and now you're in America and you're talking out against the war. So you might actually be standing for trying to save American soldiers, but you would have been against what the interests of the regime were, so you could be deported. All right, let's continue. So I wanted to play this video from Marco Rubio, which I think demonstrates a little bit more clearly. Like, you should just have to say, did the guy in these things it should be the top of every article. What is the crime that this person committed? And then when you say he's aligned with Hamas, does that mean that he was actually pitching resources for Hamas? That's a little bit ill-defined. And then what authority do you have for, throwing people out of the country? Which didn't, I guess it was outlined in that article. All right, let's roll this clip.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa.
All right, but now the guy's got a green card and he's banging someone in the country. And so the banging someone in the country, I think, does add a couple of variables. One, if you're some hot chick from another country and you want to give some pussy to one of our losers over here, I feel like you're doing something for the American people. And also, once you're married to someone in the country and you have a kid, so it's now in the interest of that American that you stay. It's not entirely like, it's no longer just, hey, this is some foreign individual who is here as a visitor. It's now a person that an American relies upon and has a relationship with. So, you know, and then also, if you're a dude who came from a foreign country, you managed to pull an American, you must have some winning genes in there. Do we really want to just throw that guy out? But now here, already where he's kind of distorting the situation is, yeah, I guess if your initial status is, if the legal authorities that we can throw out people because they just have a visa, and when they just have a visa, they're just a visitor. So then while they're within the visa status, then yes, I guess you can throw them out. But if you escalate them to green card status that then has different protections than visa status, so then this guy does not fall into the way you're defining visa status. So what I'm saying is this guy wasn't just here on a visa. You might have started on a visa. We all start in some, like, sometimes, you know, you work at a company and then you work your way up and you got a different status at the company. And maybe you get to show up late in the morning now and the rookies didn't get to do that, but you're at a different status. Maybe that's not the best example, but the point I'm trying to make is you might have started off in the country with a visa. And when you have visa status, that might not have the protections of a green card or being married to someone here, that you can just be removed by the regime for saying things that are against the interests of the regime, even if that's not necessarily, you could have a professor that came in on a visa working at Columbia who was talking out against the response to COVID and is the most brilliant pharmaceutical mind, and then the regime can evict him because they go, it's not in our best interest. And I guess we would all say, hey, you're not actually a resident of the country, you just have a visa, and so it's up to the regime to decide who should be allowed to say what while they have a visa. Now, even that, doesn't that feel like that gives a little bit too much? Because that's not necessarily just yours and my interest, because someone could be speaking honestly about something that actually is just against it. You could be the most brilliant forensic investigator in the entire country, have come into the country on a visa, and then have the paper records of all of the Biden fraud, and then they could evict you and go, well, you know, it has nothing to do with that. You're speaking out again. It's dangerous to have individuals like this looking into the activities of our elected officials, and so to remove you from the country, and you just have a visa, so you're it shouldn't. So even that's like a little bit. But okay, even if you want to say fine, you're a visitor in the country and you only have visa status. This guy's past that status. So the fact that Rubio is trying to exert authority over visa status, that sounds disingenuous. You should have to have a conversation about, well, the guy was here on a green card, and when you have a green card, we have the license to remove your green card and evict you based on your speech and actions. But that's, you see what I'm saying? That's not what he's saying. He's saying, well, the guy was initially here on a visa, right, but now he has a different status.
We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out.
Well, I guess he said at the end that even if you start on the visa and you end up a green card and you're creating problems, we're going to kick you out. All right, wait. I got one more thing on this. Or perhaps we can just call it. Oh, this was the Wall Street Journal defending why the administration probably does have the illegal authority to throw him out. We can read this and then we can call it an episode, and we'll be back on Friday with David Collum. We've been here before. In his first term, Mr. Trump issued a series of executive orders that became known as the travel ban. The last order restricted entry for nearly all visitors from 6 mostly Muslim countries, as well as North Korea and Venezuela. Lower courts blocked the ban, but in 2018, the Supreme Court allowed it. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts declared Mr. Trump's proclamation falls squarely within the scope of presidential authority under the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act. The administration's recent actions are likely to take the courts some time to untangle. If Colombia doesn't come to an agreement with Mr. Trump on the $400 million he wants to cut, the courts will probably have to weigh in. At the same time, Mr. Khalil and his allies will defend his green card. So I bet what will happen, says Berkeley law professor John Yoo, is that even though the immigration law says that alien students can be deported, there'll be a district judge somewhere who says that the president cannot use that power to punish people based on the First Amendment protected beliefs and speech, but the Supreme Court will ultimately uphold the law. These protests weren't really about speech. If all protesters had done was stand outside waving Palestinian flags and chanting anti-Israeli slogans, no one would be talking about deportation. Mr. Trump laid out his rationale on Truth Social. We know that there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country have engaged in protest, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. So there you go. You got the Wall Street Journal saying that seemingly Donald Trump actually does have the authority. That's in the opinion section. I would like to know what illegal activity this guy actually engaged in. All right, that is our episode. I'll take a couple comments and then we'll call it a show. Ambassador Sol, but didn't USAID fund Hamas? I'm going to have to watch the second Total Recall again. Fair enough. Ambassador Sol, I'm waiting for them to say citizens next. It does kind of feel that way. It does feel like this administration's pretty in the pockets of Israel, and we're seeing free speech. They're starting to tote the line on free speech censorship. And if this guy specifically did criminal activity, then just sell it. Just sell that this guy is particularly dangerous individual. And we have the legal authority to kick people out with green cards. Or maybe I'm misrepresenting it. Maybe that's literally what they're doing. Runaway Slav, some black that looks like Bronx Johnny and Ice Cube had a kid. All right, fair enough. All right, that's our episode. Thank you for hanging out. We will be back on Friday. Full new episode with Professor David Collum. Go do your homework. Prepare yourself. We're a reading group now. You guys go check out his articles. I'm rambling. I'm saying nothing for no